Welcome everybody, this is SharePoint Patterns and Practices webcast, also known as the Office 365 Patterns and Practices webcast series. And this time we're going to talk about how can you use Office Graph from a client-side web parts which have been developed for SharePoint Framework. My name is Vesa Juvonen, I'm a Senior Program Manager from SharePoint Engineering, and with me today, responsible of the demo, once again, is Waldek Mastergaard. So Waldek, will you do a quick intro of yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Waldek Mastergaard. I am Office Development MVP and work as a Senior Developer at Rencor, and today I'll be your JavaScript dude.
Here we go. So let's actually get moving on the actual topic. So before we go to the topic itself, just to quickly explain SharePoint Patterns and Practices, we are a open source community-driven initiative controlled by Microsoft, but we have multiple external people closely involved, like Waldek and multiple other MVPs. And we provide code examples, guidance documentations, community calls, case studies, videos within the themes of SharePoint Framework, SharePoint add-ins, Microsoft Graph, and all of the CSAM and remote API-based implementations. The SharePoint Patterns and Practices is not only just for, let's say, advanced enterprise scenarios, it's also for providing you stepping stones. So how do I actually get started on all of this development topics within your SharePoint? AKMS SPPNP is the easiest address to remember. Now, let's get back on today's topic, which is the Office Graph and how we can get started, and what is it, first of all, and how we can get started using that within our client-side web parts. So the Office Graph is something which has been available for a while in Office 365, and there are hybrid scenarios with SharePoint 2016 as well. It is a intelligence fabric which actually keeps tracks of all of your work. And what we mean with that one is that there's a internal, let's say, machine learning within the Office 365 and SharePoint Online, which is tracking, for example, which are the people you work with, what are the documents you're working with, what are the documents which are most active, for example, in a site. And all of that data is getting collected by using this Office, using the Office Graph to be then consumed. The easiest way to actually see the Office Graph or how it can be used is to go to Delve. Delve is one of the services within Office 365, which is then exposing, for example, your closest colleagues, the people you work with, the documents which you've been modifying recently, or the sites you've been modifying recently. So all of that information, what you're seeing in Delve, is actually coming from Office Graph. So the intelligence behind of collecting the data. We also do have an API for Office Graph, so you're able to access that information within your customizations. And using that API, then you can actually build a personalized contextual experiences, which essentially means that you as a developer can implement similar kind of intelligence as within the Delve. So all of those APIs and needed APIs are available for you as well. The Office Graph word might be slightly confusing in the context of the Microsoft Graph. So let's slightly clarify that one. What does it actually mean? So Office Graph is in the Office 365, and that's the native service within Office 365 and also in SharePoint Online, obviously. And that's because it's a native service within Office 365, you can actually access those APIs without any additional authorization. So in the context of SharePoint, when we are in a SharePoint Online, I can just hit that endpoint, the actually search endpoint, and get that information from Office Graph. Then we do have the one API and unified API which rules them all, which is the Microsoft Graph. And that's a slightly different, let's say, topic, or it's a slightly different perspective. So Microsoft Graph is a one endpoint which is secured using the Azure AD. So you need to authenticate against the Azure AD. And through the Microsoft Graph, you can access additional stuff, not just the Office Graph information, like the trending documents or your closest contacts, but there's a lot of other additional APIs which are also outside of the Office context. You can access your Azure AD information, you can access your, multiple different services exposed by this one endpoint. So that's really the difference between the Office Graph and Microsoft Graph. Anything you want to actually clarify or add there, Waldek?
I guess that the one important point that we didn't talk about is that given the fact that the Office Graph tracks everything that you do, you might think that it will expose your internal work to others, right? And well, in a way, there is this distinction to make between the private info that's visible only to you and public info that's available to others. So for example, if you view a document or you send email to someone, only you and yourself, so non-admins, non-anybody else, will be able to see that. But if you edit a document, that is seen already in the list. So there is no risk with Office Graph making that available to others as well. Right? So it's important that you keep in mind that even though Office Graph keeps track of everything that you do, only you can see everything, and there is a small part that is available to others as well.
Which is the small part, obviously, is dependent on the permissions of those other peoples as well. So if a person have access to the document, then the modifications within a document or within a site could be visible for that person. So, and that really comes down on the last bullet point as well, kind of relates on that one as well. So the Office Graph is exposed through the Search API. And the search in SharePoint and Office 365 is fully aware of permissions. So when you use a search, you're not getting any results which you wouldn't have permission to go into. So you will always be, the search results are always filtered based on the permissions. And the same applies to Office Graph information, because in some sense you might actually consider the Office Graph as it is an endpoint in the search. You're just querying a search result with an additional intelligence which is contextual. So it's an additional search capability almost.
Yeah.
Good. And then there's an HTTP AKMS Graph Query Language link on the slide, and that's the easiest way to actually hit to that MSDN page, which is having the clarification, how do you actually create your Office Graph queries, which will then execute against the SharePoint Online. Within the context of SharePoint patterns and practices, we already right now, when the video is recorded, we have 4 different samples around Office Graph usage. This obviously we're looking into growing these samples or slightly evolving these existing samples as well. But right now we have 4 different samples available for you to kind of take granted and start using or use as your inspiration for your own personal usage. And these are recent contacts, so people you've been working with, trending in the sites I follow. So what are the documents which are trending? And that's a quite typical actually scenario in the Delph, isn't it? Because that's exactly what you see when you go to the Delph and have a look on the documents, that trending in sites I follow.
Yes, and then the part there is that in Delph you will see them across your whole tenancy, while here you can only narrow it down to the sites that you are really interested with. So imagine that you work on a project or 2 or 3. So with the web part you will get an easy overview of documents or of active documents in only these sites as opposite to whole intranet.
Yes, absolutely a good point. Absolutely. And then the third one is the My Recent Documents, so the stuff what you've been modifying within the tenant, within a SharePoint Online, within the SharePoint site collections, and then trending in this site. So what are the documents which are trending in this site? And that's a quite typical scenario. People would like to, if there's a lot of documents within a one site, wouldn't it make sense to have a web part in the front page of the site which is showing the documents which are trending within the site? So you can absolutely implement this as a customization. You can use these web parts as well within your deployment as such. That's absolutely acceptable as well. But let's actually have a look on all of these in practice. So let's switch to demo, and I'll let Waldek demonstrate one of these web parts more detailed. We kind of have a look on the functionalities of all of them, but then we slightly deep dive to one web part. So how has it been implemented, and how do we access the Graph endpoint? And we'll come back on the slides for a closure of the webcast. So Waldek, please take it away.
All right, so in this demo, I'd like to show you the sample SharePoint Framework client-side web parts that we have built that use the Office Graph to show your personal contextualized info tailored to your needs. So the samples that we have are my recent documents. So in a way, if you would, for example, go to Word or Excel, there is the most recently used list. So think of this as one list across all the products. So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Project, everything that you use, everything that you have stored in your intranet, that would be just one easy place to access all of them, right? So that's the one part that we have. The other one is trending in the sites I follow. So imagine that you work on a project or two or three, and you want to have an easy overview of what's active, what's going on within these sites. So you could go to Delve, but in Delve you see actually everything across the whole intranet. While here, you can narrow it down only to sites you follow. So with that, you get easy glance into what's going on in your sites. Then another example that we have is trending in this site. So imagine that you come to a new site that you don't know, and you want to quickly know if that site is interesting to you or not. So with that, imagine the web part would be on the welcome page of the site, giving you quick insight into what's going on, who works there, and based on that, you would be able to follow the site or explore it more or not. And then the last web part that we have is the web part that shows you people you work with. And that's based on Skype, on email interaction, on basically everything that you do, and that's being tracked by the Office graph, right? And that info is only visible to you. So if you would come to the site, you would see another group of people than for example, me. Right, so that's based on combination of what you do, who you are, and who you work with, and all of these parts you can adjust. So for example, here you can pick whether you want to see 5 documents or you want to see 4 or 3, and they will adjust the view as you go. You can also set titles. You can adjust some additional properties here, so you can show, for example, you want to see only 3 documents, and you want to change this to My Documents, all that. So that's just an easy way to tap into the Office graph and to use it to make your life easier. So let's have a quick look at how the web parts are built, and as an example, we will use the one that shows recent contacts. So let's go to the code, and here you see the SharePoint Framework client-side web part that we built. So the web parts, all of these web parts are built in React. So with that, the web parts code is really simple, and the only thing that it does, it creates new instance of the React component that does all of the work. So these are the lines that we see here.
And that's, by the way, a good practice when you think of it. So having the actual client-side web part class as clean as possible, so you can isolate the code and the state handling and all of that to the React components.
Yeah, and also, so the benefit that you get is that if you break the web part into multiple smaller pieces, you can reuse them across the web part. So you don't have to copy-paste the code, or as they say, do editor inheritance, but you can just refer to the same reusable blocks, right?
Absolutely,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. So now if we go to our component that does all of the job, we can see the methods that we have here that instantiate the web part, and then eventually what they do is we execute an issue to the, we issue a request to the SharePoint Search REST API that we use to access the Office graph. So here you see that from search point of view, we actually search for everything, but then we narrow it down using the graph query language. And there is a page on MSDN to which we already provided you with a link that you can go to, and you will read more about actions, queries, and how can you build them. So here, what we want to get is a list of people trending around or with whom I work. So the actor is me, and the action is 1019, which corresponds to the private list of people with whom I work. So meaning that that list includes AAD.org, email, Skype, everything. And there is also another action that only takes into account the org hierarchy from AAD. So that's the list available to everyone because everybody can see that hierarchy, right? So with that, eventually, this is nothing else than a SharePoint search query that we issue, and then when we get back to the results, we model them into a person, which you see here, which we defined here in an interface. And for each one, we actually store the name, email, job title, department, photo URL, profile URL, so that we can show them here on the page, as you have seen, using a Office UI Fabric React persona component, which you see here. And with that, when we are on the list, when we, for example, click on Anne, we can go to her profile page in Delve, and with that get even more info about her and what she does and who she is. So the page loads, and there you go. Here you can see some additional info about Anne.
And on that one, actually, Waldek, that's a really good point on using the React components which are available, because the web part itself, you don't have to worry about the rendering. And the look and feel is exactly aligned with SharePoint Online and Office 365. And having a look on the code, you don't have to actually define anything except the data, which is pretty brilliant.
Yes, exactly. So the only thing that you have to do is to import it from the Office UI Fabric React library, and then we use that as, in a way, an HTML tag, which is how you use them in React.
Yeah.
Right. So that's definitely an easy way to ensure that everything that you build looks and feels like it was part of your intranet, part of Office, actually.
And slightly a side topic on this discussion, but obviously the React components, we really want to, that's something what the engineering is building, and we're providing them for people to consume and use within their client-side web parts, because in Microsoft we are using React as the native language. You can certainly use Angular, and there are community initiatives for creating kind of a similar kind of approach for Angular as well. Now, there are scenarios which not yet have been implemented using the React components. And what you can do is kind of exactly what the React components is doing as well. So you can create your own, let's say, a component, which is then having that similar capability. And what I mean with that one is that if there's a capability which is missing right now from the React components, because we're pretty early on the development cycle, you can no doubt create your own reusable component to your project, or and then use that across your web parts.
Yep. So with that, I guess that sums up the demo, and we would definitely encourage you to give them a try. And I'm giving it back to Vesa to wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you. And really, like Waldek mentioned, these are great samples. They're available for you to consume today as an inspiration, or use them as such. To be fair, if you have a look on, for example, my documents, the presentation is pretty large, but you can certainly adjust the presentation layer. The whole point is that the web parts are showing how to get access on the data, how the Office graph actually works within the context of the known SharePoint user. So there's no additional authorization or anything like that when you're calling the API. But I think that sums up the demo. So let's switch back on the slides and close up the webcast. Good. I think it's that's it from this particular webcast. So we went through what the Office graph is, how can we use that, and what are the considerations within the Office graph, what is the web parts which we have available for you already right now in the developer preview of SharePoint Framework. Obviously, slightly depends on when you're watching the video, but right now, when we recorded this, we are still in the developer preview. And then there was a nice demo from Waldek explaining how do we actually use the Office graph within our client-side web parts. But any last words from you, Waldek?
I would encourage everyone to give the samples a try to see if they work, and you have new ideas of improvements. Don't hesitate to reach out, submit PR, or let us know.
Yes, absolutely. You can always suggest also new capabilities if you don't have the technical skills to implement that. So, but obviously contributions on this existing solution are more than welcome as well. But thank you everybody for watching, and I think that's it for this one. So we'll come up with a new webcast sooner or later. Thank you.
Bye.